In the deepest depths of Stirling University lies a man who ponders important questions. Not questions like, what's the meaning of life, or why are we here? But questions that center over one concept. How do I scare my audience? Tonight, he will answer that question, reading tales that are so utterly horrifying they may leave you weak at the knees. Welcome to the Spook Zone.
Ladies, gentlemen, other eldritch abominations, I welcome you to my humble little show. This is the Spook Zone, the show where I say spooky stories and you probably don't get scared because I mumble the words too much. Incidentally, if you are an eldritch abomination, please stop poisoning my water. I enjoy hallucinations as much as the next student, but, being able to taste colors and hear sounds that are unearthly and unsurprisingly horrifying, it gets old after like 8 months. Thank you. Just stop that now, please. So, it's horribly rainy outside. I had to come in here in the pouring rain, and I had not brought any sort of thing to cover my head or make sure I didn't get completely drizzled on. So I am freaking cold as hell. I also have an actual cold, if you can hear that. You can hear the sniffles. It's pretty nice, and by nice I mean horrible. So, what is on the agenda today? If you're a regular, you might know what it is, but if you're new, here's how it goes. We have the commemorative edition, Necronomicon, the best weird tales of H.P. Lovecraft to get through first. I will give you a demonstration of how big it is. That's big! It's scary big. It's almost too big, There's a feeling you get when you're like, wow, that's way too big. And this is getting suggestive, so I'm going to put a pin in that and move on to what I have to do next. And what I do next is a little bit of internet reading. And that's fun, because the internet is horrible. And by horrible, I mean horrifying. But it is also horrible in general as well, so, that's fine. So what is our first story for today, if I can just find it? Where are you at? There you are. So, this story is about a hound. I don't know what else to say about that story, apart from that it is about a hound, and it is about a man thinking about said hound and being scared of said hound. Hopefully this won't be one of those Lovecraft stories where he just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on about this, like the scenery and stuff. So it's actually an interesting one about building terror and suspense. Or I also hope there's not racism. If there is, blame Lovecraft, not me. He was a bad man who believed some bad things. But anyway, if I will slowly but surely stop digressing, let's get on with the show. This first story of today is The Hound. Enjoy. In my tortured ears, there sounds unceasingly a nightmare, whirring and flapping, and a faint distant baying as of some gigantic hound. It's not a dream. It is not, I fear, even madness. For too much has already happened to give me these merciful doubts. St. John is a mangled corpse. I alone know why, and such is my knowledge that I'm about to blow out my brains for fear I shall be mangled in the same way. Down unlit and ill-imitable corridors of eldritch fantasy sweeps the black, shapeless nemesis that drives me to self-annihilation. May heaven forgive the folly and morbidity which led us both to so monstrous a fate. Wearied with the commonplaces of prosaic world where even the joys of romance and adventure soon grow stale, St. John and I had followed enthusiastically every aesthetic and intellectual movement which promised respite from a devastating ennui. Sorry about that. The enigmas of the symbolists and the ecstasies of the Raphaelites all were ours in their time, but each new mood was drained too soon of its diverting novelty and appeal. Only the somber philosophy of the decadence, could help us. And this we found potent only by increasing, gradually, the depth and diabolism of our penetrations. Baudelaire and Hoymans were soon exhausted of thrills, till finally there remained for us only the more direct stimuli of unnatural personal experiences and adventures. It was this frightful emotional need which led us eventually to that detestable course which even in my present fear I mention with shame and timidity. That hideous extremity of human outrage. The abhorred practice of grave robbing. I cannot reveal the details of our shocking expeditions or catalogue even partly the worst of the trophies adorning the nameless museum we prepared in the great stone house where we jointly dwelt, alone and servantless. Our museum was a blasphemous, unthinkable place, with this satanic taste of neurotic virtuosi. We had assembled an universe of terror and decay to excite our jaded sensibilities. It was a secret room, far, far underground, where huge winged demons carved of basalt and onyx vomited from wide grinning mouths weird green and orange light, and hidden pneumatic pipes ruffled into kaleidoscopic dances of death. The lines of red shone things hand in hand, woven in voluminous black hangings. Through these pipes came at will the odours our moods most craved. Sometimes the scent of pale funeral lilies, sometimes the narcotic incense of imagined eastern shrines of the kingly dead, and sometimes, and I shudder to recall it, the frightful, soul-upheaving stenches of the unheard grave. Around the walls of this repellent chamber were cases of antique mummies, alternating with comely, lifelike bodies, perfectly stuffed and cured by the taxidermist's art, and with headstones snatched from the oldest churchyards of the world. Niches here and there contained skulls of all shapes, and heads preserved in various stages of dissolution. There, one might find the rotting bald pates of famous noblemen and the fresh and radiantly golden heads of new buried children. Statues and paintings there were, all of fiendish subjects, and some executed by Sir John and myself. A locked portfolio, bound in tanned human skin, held certain unknown and unnameable drawings which it is rumoured Goya had perpetuated but dared not acknowledge. There were numerous musical instruments, stringed, brass and woodwind, on which Sir John and I sometimes produced dissonances of exquisite morbidity and this is a fun one. I'll get this. Cacodemoniacal ghastliness. Yeah. Whilst in a multitude of inlaid ebony cabinets reposted the most incredible and unimaginable variety of tomb loot, even ever assembled by human madness and perversity. It is of this loot in particular that I must not speak. Thank God I had the courage to destroy it before I thought of destroying myself. The predatory excursions on which we collected our unmentionable treasures were always artistically memorable events. We were no vulgar ghouls, but worked only under certain conditions of mood, landscape and environment, weather, season and moonlight. These pastimes were to us the most exquisite form of aesthetic expression, and we gave their details a fastidious technical care. An inappropriate hour, a jarring lightning effect, or a clumsy manipulation of the damp sod would almost totally destroy for us that ecstatic titillation which followed the exhumation of some ominous grinning secret of the earth. Our quest for novel scenes and piquant conditions was feverish and insatiate. Sir John was always the leader, and it was he who led the way at last to that mocking, accursed spot which brought us our hideous and inevitable doom. by what malign fatality were we lured into that terrible Holland churchyard? I think it was the dark rumour and legendary, the tales of one buried for 5 centuries, who had himself been a ghoul in his time and had stolen a potent thing from a mighty sepulchre. I recall the scene in these final moments, the pale autumnal moon over the graves casting long, horrible shadows, and grotesque trees drooping sullenly to meet the neglected grass and the crumbling slabs, the vast legions of strangely colossal bats that flew against the moon, the antique ivied church pointing a huge spectral finger at the livid sky, the phosphorant insects that danced like death fires under the yews in a distant corner, the odours of mould, vegetation, and less explicable things that mingled feebly with the night wind from over far swamps and seas. And, worst of all, the faint, deep-toned baying of some gigantic hound which we could neither see nor definitely place. As we heard the suggestion of baying, we shuddered, remembering the tales of the peasantry for whom we sought had centuries before been found in this selfsame spot, torn and mangled by the claws and teeth of some unspeakable beast. I remember how we delved in the ghoul's grave with our spades, and how we thrilled at the picture of ourselves, the grave, the pale watching moon, the horrible shadows, the grotesque trees, the titanic bats, the antique church, the dancing death fires, and the sickening odours, the gently moaning night wind, and the strange, half-heard directionless baying of whose objective existence we could scarcely be sure. Then we struck a substance harder than the damp mould, and beheld a rotting oblong box, crusted with mineral deposits from the long, undisturbed ground. It was incredibly tough and thick, but so old that we finally pried it open and feasted our eyes on what it held. Much, amazingly much, was left of the object despite the lapse of 500 years. The skeleton, though crushed in places by the jaws of the thing that had killed it, held together with surprising firmness, and we gloated over the clean white skull and its long, firm teeth and its endless sockets that had once glowed with a charnel fever like our own. In the coffin lay an amulet of curious and exotic design which had apparently been worn around the sleeper's neck. It was the oddly conventionalized figure of a crouching winged hound, or sphinx, with a semi-canine face, and it was exquisitely carved in an antique oriental fashion from a small piece of green jade. The expression of its features was repellent in the extreme, savouring at once of death, bestiality, and malevolence. Around the base was an inscription in characters which neither Sir John nor I could identify, and at the bottom, like a maker's seal, was a graven and grotesque and formidable skull. Immediately upon beholding this amulet, we knew that we must possess it, that this treasure alone was our logical pelf from the centuried grave. Even had its outlines been unfamiliar, we would have desired it, but as we looked more closely, we saw it was not wholly unfamiliar. Alien it indeed was to all art and literature, which sane and balanced readers know, but we recognized it as the thing hinted of in the forbidden Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul Azared, the ghastly ghoul symbol of the corpse-eating cult of Insissable Leng in Central Asia. All too well did we trace the sinister lineaments described by the old Arab demonologist. Lineaments, he wrote, drawn from some obscure supernatural manifestation of the souls of those who vexed and gnawed at the dead. Seizing the green jade object, we gave a last glance at the bleached and cavied eye and face of its owner, and closed up the grave as we found it. And as we hasted from that abhorrent spot, the stolen amulet in Sir John's pocket, we thought we saw the bats descend in a body to the earth we had so lately rifled, as if seeking for some cursed and unholy nourishment. But the autumn moon shone weak and pale, and we could not be sure. So, too, as we sailed the next day from Holland to our home, we thought we heard the faint, distant baying of some gigantic hound in the background. But the autumn wind moaned sad and wan, and we could not be sure. Less than a week after our return to England, strange things began to happen. We lived as recluses, devoid of friends, alone, and without servants, in a few rooms of ancient manor house on a bleak and unfrequented moor, so that our doors were seldom disturbed by the knock of a visitor. Now, however, we were troubled by what seemed to be a frequent fumbling in the night, not only around the doors but around the windows also, upper as well as lower. Once we fancied that a large opaque body darkened the library window when the moon was shining against it, and another time we thought we heard the whirring or flapping sound not far off. On each occasion investigation revealed nothing, and we began to ascribe the occurrences to imagination, which still prolonged in our ears the faint far baying we thought we heard in the Holland churchyard. The jade amulet now reposted in a niche in our museum, and sometimes we burned a strangely scented candle before it. We read much in Alzared's Necronomicon about its properties and about the relation of ghost souls to the objects it symbolized, and were disturbed by what we read. Then terror came. On the night of September 24th, I cannot remember the date, I heard a knock at my chamber door. Fancying it at St. John's, I bade the knocker enter, but was answered only by a shrill laugh. There was no one in the corridor. When I aroused St. John from his sleep, he professed entire ignorance of the event and became as worried as I. It was the night that the faint, distant baying over the moor came to us a certain and dreaded reality. 4 days later, while we were both in the hidden museum, there came a low, cautious scratching at the single door which led to the secret library staircase. Our alarm was now divided, for, besides our fear of the unknown, we had always entertained a dread that our grisly collection might be discovered. Extinguishing all lights, we proceeded to the door and threw it suddenly open, whereupon we felt an unaccountable rush of air and heard as if receding far away. A queer combination of rusting, tittering, and articulate chatter. Whether we were mad, dreaming, or in our senses, we did not try to determine. We only realized, with the blackest of apprehensions, that apparently the disembodied chamber was beyond a doubt. The disembodied chatter, that is, was beyond a doubt in the Dutch language. After that, we lived in growing horror and fascination. Mostly, we held to the theory that we were jointly going mad from a life and unnatural excitements, but sometimes it pleased us more to dramatize ourselves as the victims of some creeping and appalling doom. Bizarre manifestations were now too frequent to count. Our lonely house was seemingly alive with the presence of some malign being, whose nature we could not guess. And every night, the demonic baying rolled over the wind-swept moor, always louder and louder. On October 29th, we found in the soft earth underneath the library window a series of footprints, utterly impossible to describe. They were as baffling as the hordes of great bats which haunted the old manor house, in unprecedented and increasing numbers. The horror reached culmination in November 18th, when Sir John, walking home after a dark from the dismal railway station, was seized by some frightful carnivorous thing and torn to ribbons. His screams had reached the house, and I hastened to the terrible scene in time to hear a whir of wings and see a vague, black, cloudy thing silhouetted against the rising moon. My friend was dying when I spoke to him, and he could not answer coherently. All he could do was to whisper, "The amulet! That damned thing!" Then he collapsed, an inert mass of mangled flesh. I buried him the next midnight in one of our neglected gardens, and mumbled over his body one of the devilish rituals he had loved in life. And as I pronounced the last demonic sentence, I heard afar on the moor the faint baying of some gigantic hound. The moon was up, but I dared not look at it, and when I saw on the dim-lighted moor a wide, nebulous shadow sweeping from mound to mound, I shut my eyes and threw myself face down upon the ground. When I rose trembling, I know not how much later, I staggered into the house and made shocking obeisance before the enshrined amulet of green jade. Being now afraid to live alone in the ancient house on the moor, I departed on the following day for London, taking with me the amulet after destroying by fire and burial the rest of the impious collection in the museum. But after 3 nights I heard the baying again, and before a week was over, felt strange eyes upon me whenever it was dark. One evening, as I strolled on Victorian Embankment for some needed air, I saw a black shape obscure one of the reflections of the lamps in the water. A wind, stronger than the night wind, rushed by, and I knew that what had befallen St. John must soon befall me. The next day, I carefully wrapped the green jade amulet and sailed for Holland. What mercy I might gain by returning the thing to its silent sleeping owner, I knew not. But I felt that I must try any step conceivably logical. What the hound was and why it had pursued me, the question still vague, but I had first heard the baying in that ancient churchyard, and every subsequent event, including St. John's dying whisper, had served to connect the curse with the stealing of the amulet. Accordingly, I sank into the nethermost abysses of despair when, at an inn in Rotterdam, I discovered that thieves had despoiled me of this sole means of salvation. The baying was loud that evening, and in the morning I read off a nameless deed in the vilest quarter of the city. The rabble were in terror, for upon an evil tenement had fallen a red death beyond the foulest previous crime of the neighbourhood. In a squalid thief's den, an entire family had been torn to shreds by an unknown thing, which left no trace. And those around had heard all night a faint, deep, insistent note, as of a gigantic hound. So, at last I stood... apologies. So, at last I stood again in the unwholesome churchyard where a pale winter moon cast hideous shadows, and leafless trees drooped sullenly to meet the withered frosty glass and cracking slabs, and the ivied church pointed a jeering finger at the unfriendly sky, and the night wind howled maniacally over frozen swamps and frigid seas. The baying was very faint now, and it ceased altogether as I approached the ancient grave I had once violated, and frightened away an abnormally large horde of bats which had been hovering curiously around it. I know not why I went thither, unless to pray or gibber out of some insane pleas and apologies to the calm white thing that lay within, but whatever my reason, I attacked the half-frozen sod with a desperation partly mine and partly that of a dominating will outside myself. Excavation was far easier than I expected, though at one point I encountered a queer interruption. When a lean vulture darted down out of the cold sky and pecked frantically at the grave earth until I killed him with a blow of my spade. Finally, I reached the rotting oblong box and removed the damp nitrous cover. This is the last rational act I ever performed. For crouched within that century coffin, embraced by a close-packed nightmare retinue of huge, sinewy sleeping backs, was the bony thing my friend and I had robbed, not clean and placid as we had seen it then, but covered with caked blood and shreds of alien flesh and hair, and leering sentiently at me with phosphorescent sockets and sharp, ensanguished fans, yawning twistedly in mockery of my inevitable doom. And when it gave from those grinning jaws a deep sardonic bay as some gigantic hound, I saw that it in its held in its gory, filthy claw the lost and fateful amulet of green jade. I merely screamed and ran away idiotically, my screams soon dissolving into peals of hysterical laughter. Madness rides the star wind, claws and teeth sharpened on centuries of corpses, dripping death astride of bacchanal of bats from night-black ruins of buried temples of Belial. Now, as the baying thing of that dead, fleshless monstrosity grows louder and louder, and the stealthy whirring and flapping of those accursed web-wings circles closer and closer, I shall seek with my revolver the oblivion which is my only refuge from the unnamed and unnameable. Ooh, that was fun. That was a good one. I'm very pleased I picked that one. That was not too heavy on the description of things we don't care about. It was far more centered on people. And what they also did, which I found quite good, was leaving a lot of things to the imagination. Like, the Necronomicon, for example, is probably a recurring thing in his works, I would wager. But if you're, like, reading that off just the first off, you'll be, like, puzzling over it. You'll be like, oh, what's that? Where did you get that? What could it be? What's the history to this thing? Because they're talking about it as if it's been there for ages. And that incites imagination in the reader. And that's good. It's really good. Yeah, okay. I'm going to stop doing that because that's a bit weird. Okay, so what's next on the agenda? According to the Creepypasta website, which, if you are unaware of this, the term to describe a short story, basically a horror short story, more likely, on the internet is a creepypasta. I don't know why that is. I'm going to check. I'm going to check where the name derives from, because I've got a little bit of a while to wait. I've still got like another 30 minutes, and this story will, according to this, will only take like 20 minutes. So, let's have a look. The name creepypasta comes from the name word copypasta, an internet slang term for a block of text that gets copied and pasted over and over again from website to website. Okay, so it's like a campfire story that you paste on website to website. I get it. Oh, that's clever. Oh boy. Oh wow. Oh jeez. Okay, so this next story is called The Seer of Possibilities, and it's about a man who finds a seer. And, well, what happens next is up to interpretation, because I have not read this fully before. This will be a blind reading just as much as that last one was. I really should read these things before I actually get started on this, because I just realized I made a lot of errors in that, and that probably took away from the horror. Me going, yes, I nailed that word, yeah! That was probably bad. That was probably bad of me to do. It probably broke your immersion, like it would break a glass ceiling. Or the fourth wall. Specifically the fourth wall, actually. It would definitely break that. Never mind. let's get on with it. Let's just read something cool, because apparently this is the most highly rated post on the Creepypasta website, which is where all of these short stories get posted. Like, it's the hub, so to speak, of really, really good short horror stories that you can just look up and say, oh, that's good. That's really good. Wow. I highly suggest you go on there, just creepypasta.com. It's pretty good. Read scary things. Puts the fear of God in you, or the fear of the unknown, or the fear of the undescribable. You know, either one. I pick your poison, or the fear of death. Mostly the fear of death for me. Okay, let's get on with it. This is the Seer of Possibilities. It is by a little man, probably not a little man. I'm just being cruel. Thomas O. An actual name, for God's sakes! Wow. Usually, like, the internet names you get on these sort of stories is like Sniper Wolf 88. No, Sniper Wolf is an actual person who streams video games online. Let's think of another one. Puddin' Pop 88. That's good. That'll do. Okay, so this is The Seer of Possibilities by Thomas O. I hope you enjoy. Sometimes, otherworldly beings find interesting ways to try and contact you. They might use a Ouija board, or maybe come to you in a dream, or sometimes they speak through another person. They each have their own style and preference that's particular to them. The one who contacted Jack spoke to him through his computer, or I guess you could say the communication was through on-screen text. The first time it happened, Jack had been sitting at his computer playing solitaire. A blinking red light from the router indicated that his internet connection was down again. This was at least a weekly occurrence, and Jack was getting used to this spotty internet service. As he moved the cards, the game faded into a solid black screen, and the red text appeared. Hi, Jack. I need a favor from you. You're a very special person, and I know you'll help me. I can't ask this of just anyone. I really need your help. Jack paused for a second. The router light was still blinking red. Is this some kind of joke? He couldn't help but wonder. Several moments later, the message continued. Yes, Jack, I know this is weird for you, but I don't want you to worry. This is just a small, easy favor I need. I'll make sure you're rewarded. Now, nearly in a panic, Jack reached around and pulled an internet cable completely from the wall. Still here, Jack. I don't want to waste any more of your time, so I'll get right down to what I need. Tomorrow, when you go to work, I need you to move the large potted plant that's next to the elevator on the ground floor. All you have to do is pull it out 3 inches from the wall. If you do it at 8:17 a.m., nobody else will be in the area. Jack sat there, refusing to respond, still trying to figure out what was happening. The writing continued. Look, Jack, I'm asking you because I know you'll do it. You won't let me down. You're special. We'll talk tomorrow. Jack pulled the power cord from the wall and the computer went blank. Did that really just happen? He thought. Still shaking from the experience, he took a warm shower and got ready for bed, convincing himself that he'd either had some crazy dream or that it was just some elaborate joke. But who would play that kind of joke on him? He didn't really have any friends. Or enemies. He woke up the next morning feeling refreshed. Work would start at 8:30 a.m. and Jack was never late. He pulled up into the parking lot at 10 past 8 a.m. Normally he'd just go right in, but the message had told him to move the plant at 8:17 a.m. Was he really going to do it? Overnight, Jack's fear had turned into curiosity. Let's say he moved the plant. He wouldn't be doing anything wrong or illegal, right? In Jack's mind, the most reasonable course of action was to move the plant. He'd do it, nothing would happen, and he'd be able to put this whole crazy matter behind him. 1 minute before 8:17, Jack left his car and walked towards the building. He left the foyer at the exact time he was supposed to. The message was right. Nobody else was around. Odd, Jack thought. The building was normally busy this time of morning, but this temporary lull has been accurately predicted. Fine, let's see what happens, Jack muttered to himself. He walked up to the large potted plant, placed firmly between the 2 elevators in the lobby of the 10-story building. The plant looked like it was fake, a decoration people passed every day without really noticing. It was heavier than Jack realized. He put some might into his effort and pulled the plant out 3 inches to his best estimate. He stood back and looked at the plant and then looked around the lobby. People were coming in behind him now, and the lobby was starting to fill up again. Nobody seemed to notice that the plant was in a slightly different location. Nothing seemed different at all. Jack skipped the next elevator and waited. Waited for something. But nothing happened. Finally, Jack entered the elevator and made it to his 7th floor cubicle on time, like always. If you ever asked Jack's co-workers to describe him, you'd hear words like polite, quiet, respectful, and competent. And while those words were all accurate, they gave little indication of the truth that Jack didn't really like most people. That's not to say he disliked them, just that he had very little interest in getting to know them or being their friend, save for one. Allie, the girl who sat 2 cubicles down from him, was the only person he wanted to know more about. With a big smile, blonde hair, and beautiful figure, Jack was very interested in learning all about her. Despite his lack of success with women in the past, he was actually doing a fair job of getting to know her. Every morning, as he passed her cubicle, he'd stop for a chat. The chats were 1 minute at first, then 2 minutes, then several minutes. Jack was surprised that she seemed to like him. On this particular morning, their daily conversation lasted only a couple of minutes. As they exchanged their morning's greetings and talked about Allie's wild night out, the elevator doors opened up behind them. Out hobbled James Bentley, the boss of both Jack and Allie. James's loud complaining could be heard throughout the office. "My damned foot!" "What happened, James?" came the mumbled queries. "It's that damn plant they have in the lobby. I ran right into it and twisted my ankle." "Oh, James, you can barely walk. You need to go to the hospital," came Allie's concerned reply. "Oh, can't do it now. I have meetings all day. Too important to cancel. I'll just have to tough it out." Jack, feeling stunned, left Allie's cubicle mid-conversation and sunk down in his chair. It was his fault. He was sure of it. Oh, how could he be so stupid and careless? Still, no use in worrying about it now. A twisted ankle would heal. Everything would be all right. Upon his return home, Jack immediately went to his computer and turned it on. And as soon as the computer booted up, the screen went black, and a new message popped up. "How was your day, Jack?" He sat there, staring at the screen, not knowing how to answer. The message on the screen continued. "Actually, I do know how your day was, but never let it be said that I'm not polite. You're wondering what's going on. You want to know why James Bentley had to twist his ankle. Well, Jack, this chain of events isn't done playing out. I don't want to tell you too much too soon, but this will all make sense to you in short order. Just go to work tomorrow like you normally do. Don't worry about a thing, Jack. You'll be rewarded. You're special. Talk to you tomorrow." Jack sat back in his chair. What was going on? Who was this sending him messages? Jack's curiosity was fully engaged, and he was almost a bit excited to see what would happen next. The next morning at work started off as any ordinary day. Jack noticed that the plant had been pushed back fully against the wall, probably by the night cleaning crew. James Bentley showed up shortly after lunch, hobbling into the office on his one good foot. "Ah, man, this foot is killing me," Jack could overhear him say, but apparently James still had a meeting he didn't want to miss. It wasn't up until around 3 o'clock that Jack saw him again. James, who'd always seemed to prefer Allie over others, came limping over to her cubicle. Ellie, you're not doing anything right now, are you? No. Nothing that can't wait till tomorrow, I guess. Good. Could you please drive me to see my doctor? I probably should have gone yesterday, but I just couldn't get away. The pain is killing me right now, and I don't think I can drive myself. I barely made it here this morning, and I don't think I can even push the gas pedal right now. We can take my car if you want. Yeah, that's fine, James. I don't have a problem taking you. Turning to Jack, she said her goodbye. See you tomorrow, Jackie. She put on a coat and slowly followed James as he struggled down the hallway. She gave a half-turn and a shrug in Jack's direction with a little smile as she walked away. Jack felt even lonelier than normal when she was gone. It was 10 minutes later that they all heard the crash. It was preceded by the loud horn of an 18-wheeler and screeching brakes. The collision itself was a sickening thud of two metal objects colliding. Even on the 7th floor it was loud. The office workers gasped and ran to the windows. Is that James's car? One of them asked. Hard to tell from up here, someone responded. It's so banged up. The horrifying implication of what just happened came to Jack immediately. No, he thought. This can't be true. Shaking all the way, he ran to the elevator and went to the ground floor along with several others from the office. Some of them were crying. As they joined the growing crowd around the scene of the incident, Jack could hear the far-off sound of emergency sirens. Looking past the Gawkers, he saw that the 18-wheeler had hit James's car broadside. Its driver had been thrown out into the pavement where he lay, motionless. James was sitting in the passenger seat of his car, motionless with a surprised look on his bloody face. Jack couldn't tell if he was alive or dead. The driver's side, where Allie was seated, had taken the hit. The space she'd been occupying had been compacted to a third of its original size. Allie's head was smashed open, and her twisted body was broken and battered. The crowd was stunned. Tears, screams, sirens, that was all Jack could hear. Without going back into the building, Jack ran his car and drove home, angry and sad. He made the journey home and to his computer. The machine sat. He wanted to turn it on, but he was afraid of what he'd found out. Was he really the responsible one for Allie's death? The whole chain of events had started with him. He knew he was to blame. Jack reached for the power button and then pulled his hand back. Finally, after several minutes, he found the mental strength to turn it on. The screen flickered and then went black, and the familiar text started appearing on the screen. No, Jack, it's not your fault. I know you're blaming yourself, but all people die eventually. Some just sooner than others. Jack stared at the screen. He resisted the urge to throw the monitor to the ground. After a moment, the writing continued. Jack, I'm going to tell you something, and I really need you to seriously consider everything I'm about to say. You thought you were in love with Allie. The truth is, you just wanted to fuck her. And please, excuse my language, but once in a great while it's best to be blunt, Jack. She wasn't the one for you. She would have made your life miserable. Yes, you would have eventually found the courage to ask her out. She actually was interested in you, but she thought you'd make a good project. Sad, really, for her, not for you. I want you to think back at all the things she told you. Why did her last boyfriend break up with her? Because she cheated on him, Jack mumbled under his breath. Because she cheated on him, Jack. The same thing she would have done to you. She would have made you happy for about 2 months, then miserable for the next 4 years. sneaking around, laughing at you behind your back, spending all your money. Once you finally got rid of her, you would have been so jaded that you'd never date again. This is true, Jack. I see all future possibilities, the ones that come to pass and the ones that don't. You see how she really is, Jack, but you let your lust for her blind you to the truth. Together, you and I have made sure you avoided that path. One more thing, Jack. This isn't done playing out yet. There's more to come. No! Fuck you! You killed her! Jack screamed and threw the monitor from the desk. It landed on the floor and sparked out. Jack barely got any sleep that night, and the next day he wasn't sure he wanted to go back to work, but the last words he'd been told had piqued his curiosity, and his anger had somewhat subsided. No work was done that day at the office. The company brought in grief counselors. People shared their thoughts. They cried, they hugged. James had actually survived the accident, but was in a coma. The doctors thought he might recover eventually, but nobody was really sure. Late in the afternoon, Jack was approached by Diego Salbarra, the head of the division. Diego was blunt and upfront, and he offered James's position to Jack. Technically, it would have been a temporary promotion, but James wouldn't be back anytime soon. Diego promised him that the promotion would be made permanent once enough time had passed. Let's keep this low-key for now, Diego told him. I know it might seem quick, but the Lancaster project James was working on can't be stopped. It's too important to the company. I need someone in charge right now anyway. This can't wait. Stunned, Jack accepted the promotion. He left work with a strange mixture of feelings, not really sure how he felt about anything. On his way home, he stopped at the electronics store and brought a new monitor. He brought it home and powered up the computer. And once again, the writing came up on the screen. Jack, I want to be the first one to congratulate you. I am proud of what you've accomplished. Jack stared at the screen. Jack, I have to ask your forgiveness because I haven't introduced myself yet. I am called the Seer. Like I told you before, I see what will be, and I can see what can be. It's a very powerful gift I have, but you know what, Jack? For all my power, I still can't do anything corporeal. I can predict, I can see, and with enough effort I can even communicate, but I don't have a body. That's something that was taken from me a long, long time ago. That's why I need you, Jack. I'm an artist of sorts, I'm an artist of human manipulation. You'll be my paintbrush and my canvas. I want you to work with me, Jack. It's all very simple. Just perform simple tasks for me, time to time. Jack was becoming more and more curious. And Jack, before you give me an answer, I want you to know a couple things. First off, I'll never lie to you. Secondly, I'll never ask you to do anything which, taken by itself, is wrong or illegal. Yes, bad things will result, and sometimes people will die. But they're gonna die eventually anyways, right, Jack? And the bad will always be balanced out by something good happening to you. Jack winced at this last idea, but he thought the urge to turn the computer off. The Seer was right. Everybody would die eventually. Why not let something good come out of it? What about never lying to him? If he'd known at the time Ali was going to die, he was never gone through with the original favor, but as he thought more about it, he realized the Seer hadn't lied to him, only withheld information. Still, Jack wondered if he could trust the Seer. Work with me, Jack. Together we'll make incredible things happen. I'm just asking you to perform little tasks from time to time. Oh, but these little tasks will have great consequences. They're gonna be beautiful, Jack. And they'll always end up with a reward for you. That's the beauty of my art. One single task produces something bad and something good. Oh, and one last thing, Jack. I can see you're having trouble with this. If I stopped talking to you right now, it would take you about 2 weeks to decide to join me. But you know what, Jack? You would join me. That's right, you're going to say yes. So instead of waiting, why don't you just say yes to me now? Let's get started, Jack. And when this is all over, you're going to thank me. I promise you. Jack considered what the seer had said. His initial feeling of revolt was slowly fading. He paused, and then for the first time he placed his fingers on the keyboard and responded directly to the seer. What do you want me to do next? As years passed, Jack did every favour the seer asked of him, and the seer promised. Jack was rewarded for his actions each time. The rewards almost came up in unexpected and interesting ways. One of the most memorable experiences for Jack happened about 2 years after he had first agreed to help the seer. "Jack, I need you to go downtown tomorrow," the seer requested. "Enter Garmin's Liquor at exactly 12:37 p.m. A master will ask you a question. The answer you're going to give him is 27. As always, the seer's instructions were simple and direct, yet mysterious. The next day, as requested, Jack entered the store in front of him. A burly construction worker was at the counter filing at a lottery play slip. "Let's see here," said the construction worker. "My birthday, that's the 15th, my wife's birthday, and the 24th, and my kids' ages 2, 10, and 13. The man scratched his head and looked around, zeroing in on Jack. "Hey, buddy, I need another number. You got one for me?" Jack smiled. 27. "Really? I was thinking about playing 35, but you know what? I like your face. Let's go with 27. With that, the man completed his slip and paid for the lottery ticket. "See ya, pal," he said happily, and he patted Jack on the shoulder on his way out the door. Jack tried not to put any more thought to what had happened to this man. "Just let these things play out, Jack. You'll never guess how things end up, so just let yourself be surprised," the seer advised him. Still, it was not impossible. It was impossible not to wonder about these things from time to time. He knew, considering the way the seer worked, there was no way possible he'd actually help this man, but giving him a losing lottery number, that was far too simple for the seer. He couldn't imagine he'd actually given him a winning number. So that's how Jack was surprised. When 2 weeks later he ran into the man again, at this time at the grocery store. "Hey, buddy, it's you. I remember you. Check it out. I won!" Indeed, the man looked like $1 million. Wearing new clothes, a new gold watch, a big goofy smile, the man walked right up to Jack. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again, but I'm glad you're here. I could have never won without you. Hey, let me buy these groceries for you." "Oh, no, wait. It's not good enough for you. You're my good luck charm. Always gotta treat people right. That's what my mom says." Reaching into his pocket, the man removed his checkbook and promptly wrote Jack a check for $10,000. Feels good. After thanking the man and feeling a bit confused by the whole thing, Jack raced home to his computer. After turning it on, the Seers writing appeared on the screen. "Well, Jack, how does it feel to be $10,000 richer?" "Feels good, but I can't help but wonder, we've never helped anyone before. Why are we starting now?" Jack asked that question with a tinge of guilt. He never liked to admit that people were being hurt by his actions, but in this case, his curiosity overwhelmed any latent feelings of guilt. "Oh, Jack, we haven't helped anyone. Yeah, the man's happy now, but he'll have lost every last penny within 2 years. You saw it for himself. He just gives money away. Old friends, lost relatives, they're all going to come asking for money. And there'll also be some very bad investments as well as the stress of losing everything is going to cause his wife to leave him. She'll take the kids too. He'll be alone and broke. A man who would have been much better off if he'd never won. You needn't feel bad, Jack. It's the man's own stupidity and greed that did this to him." Jack felt some regret, but the Seer's rationalizing and focusing on his own reward always put him at peace in the end. Through the years, no tasks were ever the like. Sometimes the effects of his actions were direct and easy to see. Other times they caused a chain reaction so complex he simply couldn't follow it. Go to the county administrator's building, park in a space number 43 at 4:37 p.m. came one such request. Jack did so, and 2 months later, he met Donna, with whom he fell in love and ended up marrying. He wouldn't have known these two events were even related if he hadn't even asked the seer about it. Well, Jack, when you were parked in that space, you caused the person who would have parked there to park in a different spot. But she bumped the car next to her. She barely made a scratch, but she called her insurance agent anyway, causing him to leave the office late. He missed his train home, and while waiting for the late train, he was mugged and stabbed. He will never fully recover. The muggers took his credit cards and used them. And Jack, I could keep going with this, but there's another 23 people involved. Sometimes these favors are going to be very complicated. Let's just say your action ultimately caused Donna to be in the exact right place for you to meet her. Jack's relationship with the seer grew. Though remaining mostly mysterious, the seer divulged enough information over time so that Jack could get a generalized understanding of what the seer's history was. From historical references, Jack knew the seer was thousands of years old. When still alive, the seer had been a powerful fortune teller and artist who foretold future happenings through paintings. A foolish king who misinterpreted the seer's prediction had lost a battle and, as a result, had the seer executed. Unencumbered by physical senses and existing in a lonesome void, the seer's abilities expanded exponentially, finally learning to communicate with the living. The seer began to reach out to those who would respond, including Jack. And of course, the seer knew everything about Jack. In all, it was much of a friendship as one can have with a dead person, and Jack was grateful for the seer too. He had a nice job, a nice house, a beautiful wife, and people respected him. He was happy, which was something he never really felt before the seer contacted him. 12 years in total passed. 12 years of good luck for Jack. Task after task was completed, and usually one about every month. Jack, sitting in the office of his large rural house, was contacted by the seer once again. Hi Jack, I have a favor to ask of you. This one's the easiest yet. You don't even have to go get up. Call Riago's Pizza in about 2 minutes. Let the phone ring 3 times. Then you can hang up. Jack smiled. Nice and easy. He no longer wanted to know about how these tasks would play out. He trusted the seer and simply did as he was told. Jack made the call exactly 2 minutes later. The quietness of the household was broken 30 minutes later by a ringing doorbell. That's odd, he thought. Neither he nor Donna were expecting anyone. Jack looked out the peephole and saw a pizza delivery boy. The logo on his cap said, Riago's Pizza. Jack opened the door. Here's your pizza, said the boy as he thrust it into Jack's hand. But I didn't order this. Look, I don't give a damn if you didn't order it or you're not. Mr. Riago told me to take it here, so that's what I'm doing. The delivery boy argued as he looked increasingly annoyed and spat in the bushes. Jack looked at the boy in front of him. He looked to be about 17 years old, but the most noticeable thing about him was his size. He was huge, probably about 6.5 feet tall and very muscular. It's already paid by credit card. Just take it, because I'm not driving back. The boy put out his hand for a tip. I don't have any cash on me. Jack told the truth. Whatever, came the disgusted reply. The boy looked past Jack into the house, then turned and walked slowly to his waiting car, looking over his shoulder as he walked. Jack closed the door and took the pizza into the living room where Donna was watching the TV. After explaining what had happened, he excused himself to go to his office, promising to return shortly. Donna opened the pizza and took a piece. Come back soon, sweetie. This pizza's got all your favorite toppings on it. Donna giggled as she took a bite. Arriving at his computer, the seer's words appeared on the screen. Confused, Jack? Don't be. Your neighbor down the road ordered the pizza. Mr. Riago told that boy with the correct address, but a ringing phone made it difficult for him to be heard clearly. Still, give the boy credit. He had the street right at least. So, my reward is a pizza? Jack typed, a little confused. Yep, Jack, your reward is a pizza. And also time to spend a little time with your wife. Go down there and share the pizza. Enjoy it. When you're done, Make love to Donna. That's not your task, that's just some advice I think you should follow. Oh, by the way, your neighbors who ordered the pizza are arguing right now with the silly fact that the pizza didn't arrive. Some of the things people argue over amaze me, they really do. Their fight's gonna get very heated. But you don't need to worry about that. Go, enjoy your night. Jack followed the Seers' advice, cuddled with Donna as they enjoyed their meal and made love to her on their big, comfortable living room couch. Donna fell asleep on the couch shortly after 11 p.m. Jack lay there awake. This latest favor, it just felt odd. Carefully extracting his arm under Donna, Jack left the living room and headed upstairs. Sitting down at the computer, Jack typed, "You there?" "Yes, Jack. I'm always here." "I've been waiting for you to come back. The pizza delivery boy, he is, quite the specimen, isn't he?" Jack looked quizzically at the screen. The Seer continued. "He's a horrible employee. He was only hired 3 days ago and already Mr. Riaga wants to fire him, but as a physical specimen he is strong, fast, and very observant. For example, he noticed that you didn't lock the front door after you delivered your pizza." "What?" Jack said aloud as he started to get up. "Sit down, Jack. I need to tell you something important, and locking the door now won't change your situation." Jack slowly took his seat again at the computer, looking behind himself as he did so. "You see, Jack, it is true that I never lied to you. Everything I've told you was 100% honest, but yes, I have withheld some certain facts. You see, I told you that every task causes something bad to happen to someone else and something good to happen to you, but here's the third thing. There's an ultimate goal that each task was walking towards. Remember Allie? Of course you do. What you probably don't remember about her was that he was helping to pay her brother's way through college. When she died, he had to drop out. He was going to be a great psychologist, but he works at a factory now instead. That's really too bad for our pizza delivery boy. He could have really used a good therapist a few years ago, but that good therapist wasn't there for him. Instead, he got some Freudian quack, and remember our lottery winner? Yeah, you do. He was a neighbor to our pizza boy, and after he lost all his money, of course, he beat the boy senseless after he jumped into the street in front of him and in front of his car. Quite a traumatic memory for a young lad. And his mother didn't care about the incident, didn't protect the boy at all. She couldn't. Not after using all the drugs given to her by her boyfriend, who happened to be one of the muggers who had robbed that insurance agent. He bought the drugs with the money he made from that robbery. Do you now see the scope of my artistry? Jack sat, glaring at the monitor. He wanted to get up to check on Donna, but he was too scared to move. As he continued, "Jack, you've done over 100 tasks for me, but each one has served an ultimate purpose. To physically, psychologically destroy this boy. Turn him into a monster and bring him here tonight. Don't you see, Jack, this involved tens of thousands of people and billions of possibilities. If you had failed to complete even one of these tasks, the whole chain would have collapsed. This was orchestrated by me and set in motion by you. Together, we have done something wonderful. This is a masterpiece of human manipulation, our masterpiece. And it all begins and ends with you. 2 perfect points in time tonight. Wrong address. No tip. This boy's finally snapped. He's downstairs right now. He's slitting Donna's throat at this exact moment." Jack could hear a short, muffled scream coming from the living room, followed by a gurgling noise. "No!" Jack screamed and stood up, starting to run downstairs. "Jack! Stop!" The voice startled Jack. It was inside his head. For the first time, the Seer was talking to him directly. It was a feminine voice. "You can't do anything. She's already gone. He'll be coming for you shortly, and you can't stop him." "But why?" Jack cried, with tears welling up in his eyes. It's not an artistic masterpiece if it doesn't begin and end with you, Jack. Her voice was soothing. I want you to appreciate the fact that I'm talking to you directly. This requires all of my energy, and as a result, I'll have to rest for several years before I can contact anyone again. That's how special you are to me. Please don't feel bad about this, Jack. I want you to make a moment and enjoy our accomplishment as much as I do. The voice paused briefly, then continued. Do you know what, Jack? If I'd never contacted you, you'd have lived for 85 years. 85 boring, meaningless, and bitter years, and when you died, no one would have been at your funeral. I gave you 12 great, meaningful years. You were happy, and together we did something beautiful, something unique. Jack paused a minute and considered his 12 years of happiness, and his tears of sorrow mixed with tears of joy. He turned and looked at the computer, while behind him, the massive hulk of the demented delivery boy appeared in the doorway, a bloody knife in his hand. On the screen, the last words from the seer appeared. Don't you have something to say to me, Jack? Jack wiped his tears and absorbed everything the seer had just told him. As the Hulk started stepping closer to him, Jack mouthed his final words. Thank you. I like that one. I really like that one. That was fun to read. Ooh, I like that. Really do. That's, writing good. Monster, fucking incredible. Oh, when a story gets it right and makes it real fun to read, it just fills me with a joy that I can't contain. Anyway, it is the hour now. It is 10 o'clock, and that means that I'm done for today. My voice is getting a little bit harsh, and I am positively spooked out of my wits after that one. Holy God, that was great. But, yeah. Now I'm going to calm down a moment. Let that sink in. Goodness gracious, that was amazing. I love it when twists happen like that. I knew something was going to happen to Jack. That was, obvious from the start. But, oof, I could read that one again 1,000,000 times. That was wonderful. Okay, so, apart from that, let's get on with the ending of today's show, because it is now the end. This has been The Spook Zone. I am your wonderful host, and I hope you all have a wonderful, if not horrifying, night. Enjoy yourselves, Lady One. Lady One? Everyone. That's better. Oof. Stay spooked.